Hi, Amir. I saw your flow of 49 processes video on YouTube, and I have to say it was very well explained and informative. It took a different approach from very generic way of reviewing this form, which I have been doing through knowledge areas but after watching your video, I kind of I have to say I understood it much better way because it was much simpler and realistic way how things happen in real world. So, like in your video, you were concentrating on process group wise how the exam is laid out, and until now I was going through how for some reason I was just going across the knowledge areas instead of I knew that they are part of this group, but while reviewing the form, I always concentrated on knowledge area. But after looking at, after seeing your video, I was able to interconnect different processes properly and a real flow I could see because which was always missing before when I would review this form because obviously I was going through knowledge areas. So the right approach is absolutely laying out them through process groups. So this is what I understood from your video, and I'll what my understanding is and my take on the whole thing is. So I'll try to explain it. I'll try to review it the same way and see how it is. So here it is. Here we go. So basically, first there is a need assessment. Decide like mm, project sponsor and the right stakeholders will decide there is a need, and the need assessment is done. Then the business case is done to put a dollar value and the benefits and stuff, benefits management plan and all that. Once all that is done, then it goes into developing project charter. Over here in developing project charter, we'll have a high level scope, high level cost estimation, high level milestone of schedule data. Project manager is will get the authority. The project manager is assigned authority over here, and the project sponsor will sign the project charter. Then only project charter is more like a commitment between the project and the organizations, and it aligns basically the project with the strategic objective of the organization. And so at project charter, basically it's more like a commitment from the organization towards the project, and it's more like a birth certificate, a written commitment, an authorization we can say, and it is signed by the project sponsor. And it also lists key stakeholders in the project charter and a lot of high level information which is then kind of detailed throughout the planning process. But after project charter, then we identify stakeholders. In identifying stakeholders, it's basically what exactly it says, identifying you identify the stakeholders by identifying their name, location, more like personality attributes, what they like, what they don't like, um, if they like coffee. It's just something like that. Like just developing a complete profile of a stakeholder. Where are they located? What are their interests in the project? If they like the project, if they don't like the project, how are they impacted by the project? The part of the team, anyone who can make the impact and who will be impacted by the project, whether it's internal, there will be internal stakeholders, external stakeholders. So in this process, basically all we are doing is building profile and gathering information of this of the stakeholders of the project. Once these two things are done, so over here, when from develop project charter, we will have output of project charter, assumption log, and identify stakeholder will give you stakeholder register with all the information, more like a profile information on that. And then before we move here, we need to ensure the project charter is signed and the project manager has been given the authority. And so then we move over here in develop project management plan. Develop project management plan. This process is basically it rolls up all these subsidiary plans into one plan, develop project plan, and you can say it's a mother of all the plan. And these are the other plans are the kids. End of this. So the project charter will go in develop project management plan, uh, and the process outputs from other processes will go in here. This will not get completed until all these are done. And and then the output is project management plan, which will and once this output is completed, you will have these knowledge areas and 10 knowledge areas, 9 knowledge areas, plus 3 scope baselines, and actually 4 scope baselines, but we will review that going through this. So the first management plan that we will work on is plan scope management, which will give us scope management plan, basically scope management plan and requirements management plan. Basically, this is like what work we're gonna do, and all like scope management plan will explain us how will other processes in this knowledge area will be done. So scope management plan and requirement management plan will help us to collect requirements, the collect requirements from stakeholders, and see what work needs to be done, what are their expectations, and which will give us requirement documentation and traceability matrix, so that requirements can be traced back to the respective stakeholder. Then over here we will define scope like a finished version of like the people may want a lot of things, but after you cut out all the excess stuff and kind of agree on a scope, that's where over here in define scope we will get our project scope statement. Then you decide how you break down the work into small pieces in work breakdown structure, and see how the work can be done in small pieces, which will over here it will give you in create WBS will give you your first baseline, which is your scope baseline, which consists of project scope statement, uh, work breakdown structure, and work breakdown dictionary. Because work breakdown dictionary is basically the lowest level of the work breakdown structure, which you can break at the given moment. That's the maximum level you can go down at, and it breaks work in small pieces, and it gives like okay, you're gonna do 1.1.3, which can be a specific task. So it breaks down the whole work in small tasks, manageable tasks, and stuff. Then once we have a scope baseline, we need to decide how much time will this work will take. So we will come here in plan schedule management, which will give us a schedule management plan. And in schedule management plan, it will again explain us how the rest of the processes in schedule will be done and actioned. So then we go and define activities, like when you break this scope into activities, which will give us the activities, like what activities are required and stuff. Now over here, then you go in over here, it will give us the activity attributes and activity lists. Like it will um, name out the activities, and the activity list will give us all the information. And another thing it will give us is milestone list. Basically, a good understanding of what are the phase or the project's milestone. Then you go into sequence activities, like whatever activities we listed out in activity attributes, we will put them in line. Like, okay, I'm going to buy this before I'm going to install that, something like that, and it will give you a project network diagram, and also project network diagram. Then once we know um the line, like sequential or not sequential way of work doing, we will decide how much time each work will take, so which will give us basis of estimates and estimate durations. After doing all this, we can easily determine our um time baseline or schedule baseline over here. And once we have what work needs to be done, when it needs to be done, we need to find out how much it will cost us. So we will take plan cost management. It will give us cost management plan and project in cost management plan, and then we start estimating cost for all the activities which we kind of listed over here, and then we do basis of estimates and cost estimates. Now over here in determine budget, we will get our third baseline, which is cost baseline, and project funding requirement. Basically, that tells us when the money is going to come in, how much money is going to come in, at what intervals of the project. Once these three baselines are in place, then it automatically creates a fourth baseline, which is a performance measurement baseline, which will do like the which will which will measure the performance against these three baselines. Once we have these three in place, then another thing I would like to add from my understanding, that these three baselines have to happen in the same order. You cannot have cost before scope. You cannot have schedule before cost. Sorry, I mean, mm, uh, you cannot have cost before scope or schedule before scope, because we need to know what we are doing, when we are doing, and how much it's going to cost. This has, from my understanding, this needs to happen sequentially. Second thing, we need to make sure that our work is at. Then we go to plan quality management, and then we kind of set standards. We decide like how plan quality management will explain how these manage quality and control quality will done, because there has to be some quality in the work that we are performing or deliverables that we are doing here. Now, who's going to do the work? Who will deliver this quality at this price? Based on that, we start working on the resources and see the availability of the resources and stuff. So, in we work in this process in plan resource management. We work on, because there are two types of resources in the one is human resources, another one is physical resources. Human resources is like people, physical resources is more like equipment and like office and all that stuff. So location, like if it's an off-site place and stuff. So this process will give us that how plan resource management will guide how rest of the processes in this knowledge area will how to perform the processes in the knowledge area. And same thing over here, sorry I missed that, quality plan quality management, you will have output of quality management plan, and then in plan resource management you will have output of resource management plan and team charter. And team charter is more like ground rules. This is for in team for to follow guidelines and ground rules and stuff. And resource management plan will explain us that how to take care of the other resources. Over here you will do estimate activity resources. So basically, when you did the estimate activity durations, you will assign the resources based on that, and you will have basis of estimates and activity resources. Then over here, next one is plan communications management. Plan communication management is basically will give us communication management plan. This is for specifically to communicate with stakeholders, internal, external, uh, the guys who we build profile here. Using the profile information, we are going to plan the communication management. Okay, for example, this whenever this stakeholder comes, make sure there is coffee. Sometime something like that. It will guide us. It will tell us that what does these stakeholders prefer as a communication model, like how they would like to know. They would like to receive an email or a phone call or a letter through a pigeon. Like their preference, how they want to be, and how when to involve them, not to overload someone with like information. A certain stakeholders doesn't want to know everything, and some of them want to know everything. Some only want to know certain things at certain time. Some want to be involved at every time. So the right information to the right person at the right time, that's the key in this thing, and that explains, and it guides us how to do these two processes. So it gives us communication management plan. Then the 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 main worrying area, as to say, is this, because this area can affect everything, all your four baselines, and can shake up a lot of things in your project, which is risk management. Risk management plan risk management will give us risk management plan, which will guide us how to do other risk processes. In identify risks, we identify all kind of risks, like there are good risk, bad risk, benefits, and all. So there are negative risks, there are positive risks. We will put all the risks in a pool, and then in using perform qualitative risk analysis, we will decide out of those pool which risks are high, medium, and low, which risks should be given attention, which risk is in your control, which risk is out of your control, and which risk is just there, you can't do anything. So based on that, you're gonna put a dollar figure or a numeric number, or in days or dollars, or in any way a numerical value. If required, you're going to do it here to get the numerical value. If not required, based on the risk, you're going to just come to plan risk response. Over here, you will plan a risk response, like, okay, if for example, if there are chances, if there is a good risk which gives you a chances of finishing your project, you're going to try to exploit that, finishing your project earlier. If there is a risk which can delay your project, you're going to try to make sure either mitigate it or make sure it doesn't happen. And this is how your response is to the risk. And so that's what you will do here in plan risk responses. Then in plan procurement management, over here, we will plan a procurement. It will give you procurement management plan, which will explain us how to conduct procurements, control procurements, and make and buy analysis. Like if we are going to make something, or if we're going to buy something. If we are going to make it, then we'll go back to the drawing board. After the analysis, if we decide we're going to make something, we're going to go back to the drawing board in project management plan and take a different approach. If rules have changed, or new regulation has come, or price has went down significantly, and you decide you don't want to buy anything, you have feasibility to make stuff now, so you can go back and change it. But let's say if we have to buy something, over here we're going to decide the strategy. You will get the procurement team in, like procurement department, procurement manager involved, and at that time you will decide what kind of contracts to be used, what scope is getting, what are we buying, from whom we want to buy, what are the standards, who are the people we want to buy, what kind of selection criteria we want to have. Like we want to have a person to have like a $10 million insurance, and or they need to be certified or compliant. Like a lot of finance companies, when they hire a consultant, they need them to be FCC compliant or NASDAQ compliant or S&P compliant, that they knows this compliance. Like healthcare, a lot of times have HIPAA compliance. So all that selection criteria, uh, procurement strategy, statement of work, all this will come out of procurement management plan, and at the same time it will also guide us how to do this. Now, in plan stakeholder management, we basically, whatever profile we build here, we will, using the profile and the influence information, profile information, influence information, location information, all the information that we gathered here in identify stakeholders for stakeholders on their level, where in organization they are, where in project they are, how much impact they can do. Based on that, we will plan a engagement for those stakeholders. Like how are we going to engage them? How are we going to keep them interested? So this plan, stakeholder management plan, will basically guide us through these two processes. Other two processes, it will help us to understand and draw a plan how to keep those stakeholders engaged. Once this is done, then we have our project management plan on hand, and a lot of review will be done and everything. And finally, before we go in to do work in executing, we will make sure, you want to make sure that the project management plan is completely approved and signed off and everything. So right before executing, there will be a kickoff meeting, which will give the key stakeholders, project sponsors, and all the people a good snapshot of what is agreed on, what will be in the project, and what will be done in the project, and what to expect, to set the expectations right, and there is no confusion all along the way. Now, so once that kickoff meeting is done and stuff is done, so then we start working, and we go ahead and we break the ground and we start building stuff. And in execution, you start creating deliverables, and here comes your deliverable journey. Like I saw your other video, which was excellent also, which simplified the whole deliverable journey. So over here, the deliverable comes as a output. I'm just concentrating on main output because on top of my head there are a lot of things, so I could mess up. So I'm just concentrating on the main output. The deliverables is just when the deliverable comes in out of here, because in many cases executing and monitoring happens simultaneously. Just like, let's say you are installing a TV on a wall of your house. At the same time, while you are installing the television, you are also ensuring that it's on the right angle, it's not crooked, or it's not upside down, or it's the cables are not hanging. So you are monitoring and executing at the same time. So in a lot of processes that happens at the same time. So deliverable, once the deliverable comes, it directly goes to control quality. And control quality, once it passes control quality, it gives you verified deliverable. And then after verified deliverable, it goes into validate scope, which is that's where the customer comes in, does a test drive and all that stuff, and ensure that it is up to the quality standards and agreed upon, and all the functions and everything is working fine. And once it's signed off, you get accepted deliverable, a formal acceptance, and then this thing goes into accepted deliverable, goes into close project or phase. So let's go back to, so here, that's once you get deliverable, if in case it gets rejected here or here, it will go back to PICC, which is perform integrated change control, and then after that it will come back to direct and manage work. This has its own process, we will get to it once I get here. So and that's what happens, the main work gets done here, which the output is deliverable, which gives the work. And then manage project knowledge is more like gathering knowledge across, throughout the project, and building lesson learned, and register, and good, bad, whatever work was done. If something was new, skill was discovered, new method was discovered, tacit knowledge, explicit knowledge, if that was discovered across the way, that will be entered here to help the next phase or the next project. Over here, manage quality, one of the key things over here, manage quality is an execution process, but also has quality assurance. It kind of manages the quality, builds the quality, also at the same time, it ensures the process is right. The process, manage quality, um, I believe it checks the process, while control quality checks the product. I believe that and I hope that's right. So manage quality. In manage quality, quality assurance will be done, work will be done while you're building the quality, and control quality. So let's, sorry, I jumped on monitor control. So next, acquire resources. This is one of the key areas. This next three process, acquire resources. Over here, you will acquire human resources and physical resources, and assignment, and you will get project team assignment and all that good stuff. So now, one thing, manage call, another, all most of the execution output, execution will produce an output called work performance data. Um, this one, direct and manage, yeah, they will generate works performance data, whatever the work is getting done here. So anyway, let's move on. So acquire resources is human resources and physical resources. Develop team, over here you are going to, the team, you have human resources which you have gathered, you will develop them, groom them, build their skills, and uh, ensure that they are up to the mark for the to deliver the project, deliver optimum performance. And then in manage team, over here, this area, you're gonna basically resolve conflicts, make sure team is working together to deliver towards the project objective. They are not there is not lot of conflicts, there are not lot of uh, issues going on, there is not a high turnover and all that. So in managed team, that's going to happen. Managed communications, another very critical area, because all the things over whenever there is any communication about the project to stakeholders within the team, outside the team, it funnels through managed communication. It goes through this channel to manage communications using the management tools, the communication tools explained in communication management plan. They to ensure, and this is the where all the communication happen between stakeholder updates, reports, all the reports, all the verbal communication, verbal communication, email communication, meetings, all those communications mainly happens here. Then you're gonna move on to implement risk response. In risk response, what we decided here, you are going to implement the risk response if any risk occurs. Let's say the project is running smoothly, no risk occurs, uh, no negative risk occurs, then you are not going to do anything. But at the same time, you want to ensure the positive risk occurs and you get the benefit of it. But let's say any negative risk occurs, you're going to implement the response that you did here, and then implement the response that's been planned over here. Next, in conduct procurements over here, you will select seller, you will receive seller proposals, you will do bid conference, and you will basically select the seller, the work will be assigned, and the seller will be doing this. Manage stakeholder engagement. This is where you're gonna start manage what you planned here for these guys over here. You're gonna start managing that way. You're gonna be giving the coffees out. You're going to send the pigeons out with the letters. You're gonna send the emails, make phone calls, taking them out for whatever, you know. So keeping them engaged somehow in any way possible, whichever the way is best to get to them, to keep them engaged. So that's what my take on execution is, and I know it's a very important area. So next is monitoring and controlling project work. Monitoring and controlling project work. You basically monitor and control all the uh, processes over here underneath, and then monitor and controlling project work gives you a work performance report as an output of all what's happening, which has cost forecasts, schedule forecasts, and any variances, any trends. It gives you all the information. Perform integrated change control. Whenever there is a change request, it goes into change log. Well, basically here, this is what happens. So let's a change request can come from anyone. So it will land here in a form of change log, or whatever preferred method the uh, organization uses, and using the change log over here, the project manager will decide if this uh, change request will affect the baseline, will not affect the baseline. If not, if it doesn't affect the baseline, he is going to go ahead and approve it if it makes sense. Part of if it is it makes sense to the project, like if it is something that is along with the same objective of the project, and he will approve it. But if it is gonna affect the any of the baselines and stuff, he needs to send that to the he'll give his recommendations and send it to the change control board. Now, one thing to keep in mind is the change request. I believe this is my take, Amir, I could be wrong, that change request, project manager is little relaxed with change request during the planning phase. But after, once the scope baseline is all set, it's always they follow the process to the T. It cannot, nothing can be. Once baseline is done, everything goes through change request. I think until the baseline is not done, I think they are little relaxed on the reviewing and all that of the change. So that's my understanding, but we can discuss that. So next is validate scope. You validate scope over here based on the quality. You'll validate scope based on project scope statement, based on quality, based on also there are a lot of there is also a way of validating through how much it's costing and how much time it took. Because if it if the project, the quality is right, but it's costing 4 times, 5 times more, then the control scope will come in place, and control scope will make sure that there is no scope creep, or which is very common. A lot of times it happens in project. It also ensures there is no gold plating. People don't over deliver the scope. It has the scope has to be just right. It cannot be over delivered, under delivered, or gold plated, or scope creep can happen. That's the main thing of control scope. Control schedule is making sure that the schedule is on time, because that's the key. If the schedule increases, the money increases. So, and if it's not on schedule, sometimes your competitor will release it soon before you, so you will be in a tough spot. So control schedule ensures that the the agreed schedule and the milestone is there, and if there are any variances or anything, they will develop in schedule forecast. They will kind of in the output of schedule forecast, you will see that. Now, cost also is one of the very important area, where costs, they want to make sure that the cost is not going over, or you're not spending too less. So obviously you are cutting corners, which they don't want. You want to make sure that you spend right, and the right variance is there, the right trend is there, and then you get cost forecast from control cost. Now, control quality is it checks the quality of the product, also the process, and ensure that it is up to the standard that was agreed, and quality standards that were agreed and in plan quality management. Most of the control in monitoring and control, most of the time, what it's doing is it's checking the the this it's checking that the work is getting done as per the plan, and if it is getting done as per the plan, it's delivering as per the plan, what was mentioned in the plan, uh, and it's not getting out of control. Control resources. Now, this one is specifically, my understanding is it is for physical resources, not human resources, because it wants to ensure that if you have physical equipment like a huge crane on site, it's getting used. It's not just sitting there, and you have not, for 2 days of work, you have not booked it for 5 days, and it otherwise you're spending money and it's not doing anything. So control resources, I believe it is for physical resources, what I gathered. So monitor communications is making sure that manage communication is happening properly in sync with this stakeholder engagement, all the communications, and it's using the right tools. The wrong tool to the wrong person is not helpful. It is communicated in the right method, it's communicated in the right way. Someone who wants email, but if you call him and leave mails, it's not going to help. While someone who wants phone calls and you keep sending them email, you will never receive response from them. So monitor communication, make sure that the right person gets the right information, is getting the right information at the right time, and the right amount of information the right way. And monitor risks is you keep monitoring the risk across right throughout the project, and you keep an eye on the risks and see, okay, this phase is completed, so now this risk doesn't matter, so we are good here. And so you can update the risk register, and you can input the information. One thing while I was here in planning, I kind of missed that identify risks, give you risk register and risk report. as an output. Risk, because there are two kinds of risks. There is the individual risks and there is overall risk. Individual risk affects specific areas of the project. Overall risk is critical, much more critical, because it affects the complete objective of the project. Your project can go down the drain, or it can get delayed, or whatever. So most of the time, people are, when you are doing analysis, you try to do more of the overall risks and individual risk as well. But people are more worried, like higher management. So overall risk is mentioned mainly in risk report, which higher management reviews. They don't look at the risk register, they look at the risk report, and overall risks are entered in there. So that's what yeah, risk register and risk report, those are the two outputs you need to keep in mind. So coming back to here, so you are reviewing and updating your risk register, making sure the risk occurred, it didn't occur, negative risk, positive risk, individual risk, overall risk. And once that phase is completed, because you keep monitoring this throughout the project, you kind of keep updating, okay, this risk occurred, this didn't occur, I enhanced this was enhanced, this was exploited. And also at the same time, you want, as the project goes into the other phase, or the project goes into other level, new risk, there are new chances of risk, and other new risks are identified, and they come in place. So when you identify new risks, then you will go through this process, and then you will update the risk response. And so this is done throughout it, and it's one of the most critical projects. So now in control procurement, basically one of the key output is you close the contract and close procurement. And over here you're going to check and confirm that the work, what are you buying, is as per the contract, as per the agreement, statement of work, and as per the quality standards, all that good stuff. You're going to ensure everything, and at the same time, then once everything is good, everybody agreed everything, and all the contracts are closed, and then you can close the procurement over here. And once the procurement is closed, that documentation goes up here in close project or phase. Next thing is monitor stakeholder engagement. Is You are making sure that the stakeholder is engaged, the right stakeholders are engaged to the right level, and their input, their if there is a stakeholder which you wanted them to have more input in the project, it ensures that that work was done to move that stakeholder from less interest to high interest, and it makes sure that what was decided here has been implemented. Whatever was decided in stakeholder management plan was implemented and worked on, has positive or negative output, and if there are changes and everything over here. Most of the control monitoring control processes, most of them have output as work performance information. That comes from the taking the input from executing, which is work performance data. Work performance data is an output from most of the execution, which goes into most of the monitoring processes. Basically, that's a raw data, very technical data, which is not, which a lot of people will not be able to read it. It has a lot of technical information, lot of stuff which is not easy to read, or a person who is not technical can find it difficult to read. So what happens after, once the output comes out of control as work performance information, it's a readable information, like most of the people will be able to make sense, and that work performance information goes up here, in monitoring, controlling, and then it comes out as a work performance report. And I'm I believe work performance report then goes to final report to close project or phase, and then in this we have accepted deliverables, we have lesson learned, uh, all the final things happen here, like accepted deliverable, formal acceptance has been done, and all the documentation, everything, agreements, procurement documentation, project charter, you check. Basically, in close project, apart with the documentation to back up, basically you are ensuring that what was decided here, the objective, the business objective, and the benefits objective has been met, and to ensure that you have deliverables, and to back them up, that how they were met and how they were met, you have the documentation, and and documentation is agreements, procurement documentation, final report, lesson learned, how you did it, what, where did you made mistake, where can you benefit in the next phase of the project. So that's my take on it. So it's not as sharp as your video, but let's see. Please let me know where if I have missed anything, or if I have made some mistakes which I can correct. I'm sure I must have, and if I missed out anything. And but no, thank you very much. Your this approach of process groups is much more easy to understand, because that's the right way how the project happens, and rather than going across the line. Yeah, we have to know that. That's no take, but I think it's easier to pick up on what's happening in the whole project and how things interconnect with each other, intersect with each other. Is much easier going through process groups, and especially after watching a video. Thanks, Amir. I'm gonna send this to you. Bye.